Okay, so let's unpack this. You're on a tough shift, you're stretched thin, and you spot a critical risk. Maybe the stashing level is just dangerously low, or, a vital piece of monitoring equipment is failing over and over again. The patient care is suffering right now, and, instinctively that you have to report it, but that thought of causing friction, of damaging your standing with the team or antagonizing management, that internal tension, between loyalty and patient safety, it's enormous. So, how do you push past that fear? And what is the absolute first action you must take?
That internal conflict is, I think, what separates theory from reality in clinical practice, isn't it? And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the core truth the GMC enforces is that the duty to act on patient safety concerns is an overriding duty. It just completely prioritizes the patient's interests, their safety, their dignity, their comfort, above any personal feelings, professional loyalties, or organizational pressures.
That is the foundation we're building on. For this deep dive, we're pulling directly from the General Medical Council's guidance, specifically raising and acting on concerns about patient safety.
Mm-hmm. And this doesn't just apply to doctors, right?
No, not at all. It covers physician associates, anesthesia associates. The GMC now refers to all of us as medical professionals.
Right. So our mission here is to strip away all the legal jargon and give you the clearest, most actionable framework for escalation so you know exactly what the next step is.
And what's fascinating here is that this isn't just, a suggestion. It is absolutely central to what good medical practice expects of you. This responsibility to take prompt action when safety is compromised. It's foundational. You're expected to be the safeguard.
And when we talk about legal language, I think the difference between a must and a should is so critical. Can you just quickly clarify that distinction? Because it really changes how we approach these scenarios. Absolutely. The GMC uses these terms very, very precisely. When they say you must, that indicates a non-negotiable overriding duty. It's an ethical or legal expectation that if you fail, you'll need a very strong justification. This applies to things like taking immediate action, making sure basic care is met, and encouraging a culture of openness. These are really the red lines.
And should.
Well, you should, on the other hand, describes guidance or principles. They still matter hugely, but professional judgment might be required, or maybe external factors make perfect compliance a bit difficult. For example, the specific internal escalation path might be a should, whereas the duty to raise the concern in the first place is always a must.
Okay, so let's focus on that immediate duty then. It's comforting to know you don't need to be some kind of detective here. You don't need absolute proof to raise a concern.
Not at all. You just need to have an honest, reasonable belief that something is wrong.
That's a huge relief.
It is. The safest doctor is the one who acts on a reasonable suspicion, not the one who waits for the disaster to unfold. You must take prompt action if safety, dignity, or comfort is compromised. And the GMC is clear. If you act in good faith, using the right channels, your actions are justified, even if the concern ultimately proves mistaken. Delaying action to collect proof is almost always the wrong answer in a high-stakes scenario.
But let's be real about the fear. Legal protection is great on paper, but how do you handle that immediate, very real risk of being ostracized or worse? That fear of victimization can be paralyzing.
It can. And that really raises an important question about institutional culture. And while the cultural side takes a long time to fix, the law does provide a crucial layer of defense. The Public Interest Disclosure Act, or PIDA, offers really strong legal protection against unfair treatment, victimization, or dismissal for professionals who raise genuine concerns. And what's more, the GMC is explicit about this. Any contract that tries to silence you or restrict your freedom to raise safety concerns is legally void. You cannot be contractually forced into silence.
That context gives us the necessary armor then. So we have the duty and we have the protection. Now we need the map. Let's walk through the sequence of actions, the high-yield framework for managing a concern, from the bedside all the way up to the regulator.
Okay, so we always start with immediate safety. If a patient is actively suffering, their basic needs aren't being met, or immediate harm is likely, you must step in immediately. Stabilize the situation. It's a hands-on duty first. If the problem is faulty equipment or something, you first protect the patient, and then you try to put it right yourself, if that's even possible.
And if you can't fix the broken system right there and then, that's when we move to official reporting. We'd call this local reporting.
That's right. You must follow your local policy for reporting incidents and near misses. And wherever possible, you raise the concern with the person closest to the problem who has the authority to fix it. Your manager, the consultant in charge, a director. You keep the solution local before you start escalating higher.
Right. But the key part of this step, the bit that's so often forgotten, is documentation. You have to keep a detailed record of the concern, the time you raised it, who you reported it to, and what response you got. Documentation isn't just helpful, it's your professional defense.
It is, absolutely. And then we move to the standard of your report, which is objectivity. This is so important if, say, you have a personality clash with a colleague involved. You must be clear, honest, and objective. You can acknowledge any personal dynamic, but your focus has to remain exclusively on the patient's safety issue, not on settling a personal score. Keep the patient at the center.
Okay, so when do we decide the local system has failed? That's the trigger for external escalation, right?
Yes, you jump outside your organization and contact bodies like the CQC or the GMC when you believe the local channels are part of the problem or corrupt. Or maybe you've raised the concern, but you're just not satisfied with the action they've taken. And of course, if there is an immediate serious risk that just demands intervention from an external authority.
And the final step.
The final step is public disclosure. And this is really the nuclear option, the absolute last resort. This should only ever be considered if those first 4 steps have been totally exhausted. You firmly believe patients are still at serious risk, and this is crucial. You have taken every single step to avoid breaching patient confidentiality. Before going public, you should always seek advice from a third party like the whistleblowing Charity Protect or your medical defense body. Never, ever go straight to the media.
That's a really strong map. To make sure that sequence sticks in your mind, especially under pressure, let's use a simple memory hook. We call it PROTECT.
I like that. I think PROTECT is a perfect framing device. It really captures the essence of the duty.
Okay, let's break it down. P is for prompt action and patient protection. Stabilize the patient first.
R is for report locally. Use your internal procedure.
O is for objective focus. Make sure the concern is about safety, not a personal grievance.
T is for track and record. Document every single step in response.
E is for external regulator. Escalate outside if local channels fail.
And C is for confidentiality. Preserve it at all costs, even if you are considering public disclosure.
I think we can add one more T to that.
Go on.
A final T for talk to advisors. If you are ever unsure, contact the GMC's confidential helpline or protect. Don't operate in a vacuum.
That's a great addition.
So that framework is incredibly useful, especially for exams. Let's switch gears to what the MSRA or other assessments really love to test. They don't just test the rules, they test how you apply them. What are the common scenario patterns we see?
Okay, the first big one is concern about a colleague's fitness. What's being tested here is your immediate duty to protect patients, but balanced with professional respect. The best action is often to first seek advice from a senior colleague you trust, your defense body, or the GMC. Only then, if the concern persists and patients are still at risk, must you report it formally using your local policy. You don't jump straight to getting them suspended.
Right. And what about when you're the one receiving the concern, the management role scenario?
Yes. If you're a director or manager, what's tested is your responsibility to facilitate safe reporting. The best action is ensuring you have robust systems in place for a prompt investigation and making absolutely certain the staff who raise the concern are protected from any unfair action or bullying. The burden really shifts to you to maintain that safe culture.
And the bad contract dilemma. We touched on this.
This tests your knowledge of PID and your professional integrity. If you're presented with a contract that restricts your ability to speak up about safety, the best action is to refuse to enter into it or to immediately condemn that agreement. You just cannot sign away your overriding duty to patients.
And the final pattern. When local investigation is insufficient, you feel like it's been a whitewash, the risk is still there.
Right. What's tested is your judgment on the appropriate external referral. The best action is to escalate to independent regulators or bodies with investigatory authority. So the CQC, the Health Ombudsman, or the GMC itself. You must keep moving up the chain if the risk hasn't been resolved.
Okay, now let's talk about the other side of the coin. The most tempting but low-scoring trap answers that pop up constantly in these exams.
And why they fail.
Exactly. The first major trap for me is delaying action. If patients are at risk of serious harm, you have to report it immediately. Waiting or trying to solve a big systemic problem on your own just scores poorly because it directly compromises that duty for prompt action.
The second trap is trying to get proof. You don't need to wait for more incidents or try to conduct a long investigation yourself. Remember, a reasonable belief is all you need to start the reporting process. Waiting just compromises safety for the sake of certainty.
And a third trap is focusing on the person, not the system. Answers that seem to be about getting a colleague fired or pursuing a personal vendetta against a manager. They'll always score badly. The entire process has to stay objective, focused only on improving patient safety.
And the fourth big one, breaching confidentiality or going public too early. Jumping straight to the media or posting on social media before you've exhausted all the structured channels is a massive professional error. Public disclosure is only for the absolute last resort and never, ever at the expense of patient data.
Perfect. Let's seal this with some rapid-fire actions. If X happens, you do Y.
Okay. If you are unsure of the path forward, immediately contact the GMC's confidential helpline or protect the whistleblowing charity.
If you are investigating a concern that resulted in harm,
You must ensure the patient receives a full, honest explanation and an apology where it's appropriate.
and if the risk involves inadequate system or resources,
Your first action is protecting the patient, and your second is raising the concern via local policy.
great. So to bring this deep dive to a close, let's just consolidate the 3 essential learning points. Number 1, the duty overrides all loyalty. Patient safety, dignity, and comfort always come first. They override loyalty to colleagues, employers, or any fear of personal detriment.
2. Escalate systematically and record everything. Start local with your manager or director, keep a detailed record of every conversation, and only go external to a regulator like the GMC or CQC if the local system failed you or the risk is immediate and severe.
And 3, mandatory culture change. If you hold a management or leadership role, your duty isn't just about acting on a concern. You must actively ensure your organization protects staff who speak up and creates a safe, open environment for raising issues.
And this raises a really important final question, I think. What kind of professional culture do you want to work in? The GMC expects all medical professionals not just to raise concerns, but to actively encourage and support a culture where staff can do so openly and safely. You're not just reporting malpractice, you are building safety into the system's DNA.
Exactly. Knowing this framework is how you protect your patients, protect yourself legally, and ensure you are operating as the safest practitioner possible. Make sure you revisit these high-yield actions as you continue your revision at PassThemSRA.com.